I had colitis, so it's a digestive autoimmune condition,
Okay.
cousin of Crohn's, different forms of IBS. We usually get hit with that label. And I know enough to know that from my original schooling about the microbiome. So knowing that I lived on this planet for a couple decades and didn't have those problems, I had that first initial thought of like, okay, well, is there something I can do for my microbiome and my gut bacteria? And some of the first places I found was studying the phytochemicals and that of herbs. And so it slowly opened the door of like digestive health, liver health. I had high blood pressure. That was one of the first symptoms. So it started with small things and seeing a result, and it made me more curious.
This week, I interviewed Jason Ott. Jason is the founder of Empowered Prevention and is a certified herbal nutrition consultant with over 15 plus years of experience and over 20,000 hours of helping clients heal. We discussed the power of herbs, healing, and his autoimmune disease, along with Jason's daily rituals of health, power of nutrient dense foods, overcoming heavy metal exposure, and much, much more. Really enjoyed my interview with Jason. I know you will too. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the show. All right. Welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Gryn and I have Jason Ott on. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Founder of Empowered Prevention, and you're a certified herbal nutrition health consultant.
Yes, yes.
I don't think I've had, I was thinking about this. I don't think I've had too many herbal experts on, so that'll be something different for the audience.
Good, good. We can definitely dive into it.
What made you get into sort of that niche of health and nutrition?
I think it kind of, in a weird way, chose me. I originally went to school for exercise science, learning about more on the corrective exercise, how the body doesn't break down over time. Yes, I liked building it up and whatnot, but I was more interested in like preserving the longevity of the body.
Mm.
Um, and that original school that I did, uh, it left some holes in my education. So my lifestyle wasn't the best to the point of I had an autoimmune condition that got developed in my early 20s. So I pursued more information. And at that time, that's when I came across herbalism because I was early, mid 20s, strapped for cash, already had a grocery budget. And so I was looking for things to include in my day to help my health. And so I slowly started dabbling there and self teaching for my own health. And then that slowly evolved into what it is now.
And autoimmune is a fairly broad topic, and
Yeah.
it's probably something that people use a lot, and they're not sure like what steps to take. And like, what was your story around how like herbalism sort of got help you with your autoimmune?
Yeah. Well, so I had colitis, so it's a digestive autoimmune condition,
Okay.
cousin of Crohn's, different forms of IBS. We usually get hit with that label. And I know enough to know that from my original schooling about the microbiome. So knowing that I lived on this planet for a couple decades and didn't have those problems, I had that first initial thought of like, okay, well, is there something I can do for my microbiome and my gut bacteria? And some of the first places I found was studying the phytochemicals and that of herbs. And so it slowly opened the door of like digestive health, liver health. I had high blood pressure. That was one of the first symptoms. So it started with small things and seeing a result, and it made me more curious.
Mm. And then from there, you turned it into a business.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So I was blessed enough to already kind of have a one-on-one practice going
Okay.
in nutrition and exercise and that. So I just converted my path and who I was working with after that.
Mm. And then, how long did it take to overcome your colitis and that whole diagnosis?
Yeah, fully meaning all my main symptoms gone, remission. I'm not getting flare-ups. I'd say between 2 and 2.5 years. Um, the first 6 months were rough. It almost didn't feel like anything I was doing was helping because it
Hmm.
was so chronic at the time. So I'd made a lot of nutrition changes, herbal changes. Um, there were positives, don't get me wrong, but that process of healing naturally takes time. But since I was seeing little positive gains, I was like, what do I have to lose? It's just the stuff I'm putting in my mouth, eating wise. And it kept snowballing. So like my major, like the blood in my stool, the constipation, the high blood pressure, some of these big ones that can raise comorbidities, those were all pretty much wrapped up in the first year.
Mm.
Then it was all these random things that had accompanied some of the bigger symptoms.
And what were some of the steps? Like, did you cut out certain foods? Like, what type of lifestyle changes did you make?
Yeah. So I was already eating a pretty whole food diet. Like there's some processed foods and things in there, minimally processed, but I'd already shifted to like organic meats, organic everything I could possibly get my hands on. Um, but I don't think it was too heavy in foods that were supportive of my liver, of my blood health, and of my microbiome. So those began to suffer over the years. It was more about the outside of my body. So I knew how to get the proteins, I knew how to get the healthy fats. I didn't understand the nutrient density of helping my actual immune system at a cellular level. So I didn't have to deal with that colitis. So I learned a lot more about how to incorporate the right whole plant foods and herbs for my body, because everyone is different, um, to actually get the change to happen.
And if someone's looking to heal from, herbs, like what's the first step for that individual to do? Like I'm sure there's probably thousands of herbs out there.
Yeah.
So it probably could be overwhelming.
The first thing I tell people is know what they're used for. I think that we have a problem in health where we say something's healthy and we think the same definition can be true for all things from
Hmm.
all perspectives. So herbs are not like pharmaceutical drugs in America. A lot of the herbs that are more toxic or that can be stimulating to change your health, like medications do, aren't even allowed to be here. So a lot of the herbs that we're dealing with, they're not going to be aggressive and fix a problem like that. It's going to be looking to build up the structure and function of the organ systems that are impaired, so to speak. So I would say first off, you got to have your mindset is like it's not going to work that way. Most of the herbs are meant to be taken long term, and I say food grade. People get scared about it of well, is it toxic? Can I take too much? This or that? But food grade herbs, you can take them every day. You can take them for months, and that's usually how they work best. Aside from a handful of other ones that I use.
Mm. And what are some of the more like popular ones that people turn to sort of restore their health?
Yeah, well, geez, turmeric and the black pepper craze that went through here and still is. So turmeric's one a lot of people know about. Ginger, elderberry, those pop up when it's that time of year when people are getting sick, immune system wise.
Mm.
But I'd say even ashwagandha, astragalus, these are two that actually have a lot of use in the cancer and autoimmune world too. So on social media land, they get credit for other benefits, but they're two that are used a lot in integrative oncology and integrative cancer care.
Mm. What were those two again?
Astragalus and ashwagandha.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got to imagine this market has grown quite a bit. Have you seen it? I mean, how long have you been doing this for? And have you seen a lot of growth in this area?
Yeah, since COVID,
Yeah.
COVID changed a lot for people. Prior to that, I think I was shouting for the rooftops for 3 or 4 years and not getting much traction. And then once that happened, and it blew that up to where now more people are open to hearing about other options. They're less likely to pick either or, and they're more about, well, can I do that and do this? And so it's becoming more of an and conversation than an either or.
Mm. And this sort of led you to your book, No Cure, No Problem. What sort of inspired you to write the book?
That's a loaded question.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, my childhood, obviously my own uh, battles with health and different forms of schooling. But I think what I said earlier about the vague things of health, like if you asked a marathoner what's healthy versus the bodybuilder versus the 80-year-old woman, they're all going to have a different definition for you.
Hmm.
So I was running into a major education gap, um, talking with my clients so they understood I met you day one. You want the end result of being in remission or improving your health. But what we're not talking about and laid out is the process to get there. And so I felt like I was wasting to some degree the time of the person I was working with trying to educate in a session on that instead of the practical action items.
Hmm.
So it's a big part of education to where they can read that, come back, have better questions for me. And also, I found a lot of people don't know that there's different forms of medical professionals. They just think there's only one kind. So I wanted the patients, the clients I work with, to be able to ask better questions, find better healthcare, and build their own team,
Hmm.
integrative wise. Because in Nebraska, integrative medicine's not really a thing right now.
Mm.
Um, Other states are in a different place. We are not.
Oh, you guys are stuck behind a little bit old school.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
people are kind of piecing it together themselves. There are some good doctors here trying to, but the legislation, insurance wise, it's not there yet.
right. Yeah. And what's one thing maybe you've changed your mind on in the past, let's say 10 years?
That probably the biggest thing is you don't need to be perfect at a modality if you're willing to layer your care. Um, yes, I'm going to take a dietary way. There are ways to eat a very specific diet to address type 2 diabetes or reverse heart disease, very specific, but 99% of people that have a family, that have a job, they can't live that day after day, right?
Right.
So it's like, that's very specific. It works. We know it works, but we need to find a gray area. So I think 10 years ago, I was so stuck on what I knew worked because I didn't have the experience of this person and why. So over the last 10 years, finding more of a gray area to meet someone where they're at and just fill in the gaps versus me trying to push them one direction.
Mm.
Um, Man, I've seen healing happen for people when I look at their food and I go, what the heck? You should not be eating that or
Mm.
having that. But due to all the things they're doing, they're moving the needle forward. So my mindset's really changed about how much damage the human body can take and
Hmm.
how much it can come back from.
Yeah, that is for sure, right? You can put your body through quite a, I mean, it's good and it's bad, right? You can put your body through a lot of abuse and come back and end up on the other end. But um, yeah, you're better off, I think, being proactive about it rather than waiting for something to happen, right? And then trying to make a comeback.
Yes, yes, that's the mission anyway.
Yeah, our bodies and minds are fairly resilient, you know. Um, what like as far as like healing with plants, is this something that you do on a daily basis? Are you like, juicing or like what are type of the sort of daily rituals that you like to do?
Okay, my current daily rituals, I used to juice, I have, but that would be one of those things that has changed. Is like I more zoomed out and said, is it the juice or that specific juice, or is it the daily ritual of waking up, drinking 20 to 30 ounces of something naturally hydrating with electrolytes, getting your day started that way? And I think that's more it, is start your day with hydration. I've done it with cucumber juice or apple juices, like juicing it myself, celery juice. But right now it's a lemon water with some raw honey, a little fulvic acid. That's how I start my day.
Nice.
That's every day. So I get ahead of my hydration, and use a natural source of electrolytes versus buying a supplement.
Hmm.
Um, and then I find it easier to take one, whether you call it a protein shake or smoothie. You can have protein powder in it if you want or not, but I want one place to be the vehicle for all of those micronutrients. So the rest of my day, I'm not worried if I got enough fresh food or if I'm missing this nutrient. So I have my own version of my smoothie that I put my herbs in, some wild blueberries, some various powders. And that's what I chug down in the morning as part of my breakfast, if not my breakfast, depending on my day. But
Mm-hmm.
those two things, that's every single morning
Mm.
for me. And then herb wise, I mean, this would be what you call an herbal infusion. So I'm finishing this guy off. I usually make this.
A little vodka in there.
Um,
Yeah, I'm not
what's that?
kidding. There's that little vodka in there, it looks like. No, I'm
Right.
kidding. No, it
Uh,
actually looks like rum, but no, I'm kidding.
that's so like a typical bag of tea has 2 teaspoons, maybe 3 teaspoons in that bag, right?
Hmm.
In my infusion, I'm taking a 4 inch by 6 inch bag and I'm putting like 10 to 12 tablespoons of various herbs. I brew it overnight. I drink that throughout the day. So you
Oh,
can get a
nice.
high therapeutic amount of them to sip on throughout the day.
Love it. Love it. So you start your day out, you hydrate, lemon water, honey. What was the last thing you added to it? Oh, fulvic acid
Mm-hmm.
for gut.
Yeah.
That's fulvic acid mainly geared towards gut health, right?
Yeah. And personally, how I use it for my health was as a binder for like heavy metals and
Okay.
pesticides. So the clinic I work out of, we do different therapies for heavy metal toxicity.
Okay.
And that is that along with activated charcoal are some of the best binders for that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so I start my day with it. So it's hitting my liver from the jump and giving my body a little margin to the toxicity I'm going to come up against.
Mm. And then as far as just like eating habits and eating routine, how does that look?
In general, whole food. So I tell everyone eat the cleanest meat you can find. The portion or the percentage of that is varies for everybody, but I want it to be whole food, organic if possible. Any fruit, vegetable, herb, nut, seed, or spice that agrees with your body and your biology,
Yeah.
bring that in, and then figure out what your metabolic rate is, so you're not undernourishing. Essentially, at that point, is like you pick your sauces, your seasonings, customize it for your household if you got kids, and as long as it's consisting of 90-95% whole foods, that's what I aim for. So you're going to find every one of my meals, every one of my snacks is usually going to be something that is grown from the earth.
Mhm. And you said in there, figure out your metabolic rate. I mean, I've had a lot of pro-metabolic individuals on the podcast, and they talk about measuring temperature and pulse. Is that what you mean
Mm-hmm.
by figuring out metabolic rate, or is that?
Less specific than that, unless the client wants to go there. If they
Mhm.
want to go there, I'm going to follow them. But I try not to stress people out, depending on where they're at. Just generally speaking, I feel like diet culture has conditioned us, especially women, to think about eating so much less.
Mhm.
And then when we put pen to paper, I'm like, well, you don't even have a day's worth of your magnesium or your vitamin C. Like you start missing these nutrients because you just aren't getting enough whole food in your body. So I do it more of that side of like, if you're coming to me to heal, to improve your health, we can't be deficient in the same nutrients that help repair the tissue. So we're looking at that of like, you can eat above it, but I just don't want you to malnourish anymore. Most people are that are coming to see me.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to look at like eating in itself as like are you getting in like the RDAs? Like I know the RDAs aren't like perfect and
Mm-hmm.
it's a governmental sort of measurement, but like I had Kathleen Stewart on. I don't know if you're familiar with Kathleen Stewart, but uh that's what she likes to go by is like, are you getting in the micronutrients? I think we get so caught up in, carbs, proteins, fats. Well, there's so
Mm-hmm.
much more that goes into our food. I mean, you're getting when you do your own juicing, I mean, you're getting in a lot of those micronutrients right away. So you're allowing the body to just heal on its own.
Right. Setting the environment, giving it what it
Right.
needs. No, agree. And that's,
Yeah.
you said it perfectly. Is there's too much focus on calories, protein, fat, carbs? A lot of people are doing better in that area or understand it well enough. What they
Sure.
don't understand is the micros, and that's what's going to heal them up.
Hey, everyone. Quick interruption here. If you are looking to gain energy, lose inches around your waist, and build strength, well, look no further than my book, The Stepladder System: 6 Steps to Lifelong Health and Vitality. What you get with the book is my full step by step plan and blueprint that I've worked with all my clients with, packed into one book. With part one, you're going to lay the foundation, tackle any common challenges that might come in your way. Part two is my 6-pillar blueprint, how to set yourself up with a solid plan and know exactly what to do when life throws any curveballs. And lastly, step three are learning to implementation, a plan for getting results over the next weeks and beyond. So there you have it. I'll leave a link in the show notes for my Stepladder System book. Now back to the podcast. Right. Like, I mean, what type of micronutrients are we getting if we have like pizza? Right. Right. Think about that. Like flour, water, tomato paste and cheese. Like you're probably getting some calcium. I mean, you're getting, I don't know.
No prebiotics, no phytochemicals.
Right. And like, I think if you take that sort of like lens when it comes to nutrition and don't get so caught up in like calories, and I'm not saying they don't have to play a role, but like calories and macronutrients, which everyone's talking macronutrients all the time. What about like you said, like just, iron, zinc, calcium, potassium, are you getting this from your foods? And just take a practical look at it. And I think that's a great way to go about like sort of making your plate.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And so we try to shift that mindset. That's what I mean by metabolic rate.
Okay. And from that standpoint, like obviously, there's a lot of like marketing out there for these like super greens and this and that, but like really, I think you could do it on your own, right? Like you said, like what would you say? You said you make a smoothie quite a decent amount. I mean, some people maybe don't want to sit there and juice all day,
right.
But what would you say are like some sort of high level things that you like to put in or you recommend for individuals so they can feed their body with the right nutrients?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So I do like the blends, but just keep in mind, like for anyone listening, is like the people that come to see me in this clinic, 9.9 out of 10 of them have an autoimmune, cancer, heart disease. They're sick, right? Mm-hmm. So like AG1, good product, good blend, got it, but it's meant to be overall health and wellness. If you are in a therapeutic need, that's not going to be my first choice for you. We need a higher amount. We need some different things. If you want to take it day to day, great, but we need to look at some other stuff. So our focus is microbiome, heavy metals, pesticides and radiation, and then fulfilling nutrient deficiencies. That's the easiest way to sum up what we do here. Mm-hmm. So part of that morning routine is I want things that are going to give your body what it needs to protect us against heavy metal exposure, which we all get exposed. So spirulina is one of my favorites. Barley grass juice powder. Mm-hmm. Cilantro, wild blueberries, parsley. Those are all great foundational nutrient dense, but also helping our body to detox. So those go in there. I don't put parsley in mine, but I put all the other things. And then chaga mushroom. That's another great one for liver health, for keeping your white and red cells healthy. But those all are some foundational ones because between 1 teaspoon of spirulina, 1 teaspoon of barley grass juice powder, you have all 20 essential amino acids. You have almost a day's worth of vitamins and minerals. But then you get into, it has phytochemicals and it has antioxidants and it does bind to metals. And a lot of the integrative cancer clinics will use those type of things on days of like radiation and chemotherapy because of how safe they are, but they also bind to the toxic side effects of those treatments.
Yeah. So you're dealing with obviously people with specific issues and things that could be, obviously life-threatening.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then it's like, I do a similar approach of what I did to heal as a maintenance, as long as it doesn't hinder my body. Right. Mm-hmm. But I feel like with all those different powders, there are some products to keep you in maintenance. Healing just might look different until you get to that point and get your levels down.
Got it. Yeah. Are there any like products off the top of your head that you liked? Like, I know you mentioned AG1. They're like all over the place and they, that's like the big player, but are there any maybe other off brands that,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I really like right now the company Micro Ingredients. I don't know if
Okay.
you've come across them.
See if
I've
yeah.
actually requested their lab testing because one of the big things I need to know is like, are you guys testing for heavy metals, especially things like spirulina and well,
Yeah.
any products nowadays is making sure they're not toxic. Um,
Did they come back? Did they come back to you?
yeah,
Okay.
they got that back. Um, Another company for mushrooms is called Real Mushrooms. They are just doing a phenomenal job. Their testing for toxicity is great, but their compounds are verified. And that's one thing in herbalism learned a lot about, especially
Mm,
like the labels on products. And there's a lot of mushroom products that think they're marketing the right thing, but just my eye, if it's not an extract, you are getting hosed because you have to extract those mushrooms to get them into a form our bodies can absorb.
mm,
And so a lot of the ones that are like entire fruiting body or and they're not actually explaining what the extraction rate is, that's a
mm.
red flag.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I'm looking at real mushrooms. They have the five defenders, and it looks like they have a lion mane. Those are their big
Mm-hmm.
ones. I had you can check out his company, Colin Stuckert, Wild Foods.
That name.
Yeah, yeah, does
I've
that
heard that
name?
name.
Yeah, well, he's been on my podcast like 5 times, but we've just become friends. But he has wildfoods.co as his company. I've gotten a few mushroom blends from him as well. The thing about the mushroom blends is I'll put them sometimes in a like a shake or something. It's subtle, right? Like you're not gonna like start like jumping off the roof and doing things, like chaga, reishi. Do you find that like it just takes time to start feeling the results from these compounds?
I do. And that's like let's just assume that it is the right choice for the person. Um that's how it has to work. We need to give it time to strengthen up the system so it performs better. The cool part is I tell people is like once you start feeling that, that is because the organ system itself is performing better, not just because you took that. Because, like to your point, you didn't feel that day one, you felt it 4 weeks later. So it's like there is a compounding effect. It's kind of like investing your money. You got to let that thing compound for a while.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense. And like, are there certain like other blends that you like look towards as far as like, I mean, you mentioned some of the mushrooms, but are there any other specific blends that you like?
In the herbal world,
Yeah,
not so much. I usually go for individual
individual ones. Okay.
ingredients. Um, but that's also
What's maybe a story of someone that's healed that you've worked with over the past, few years?
uh, tell me autoimmune or cancer. That'll help me narrow it
Let's do
down.
autoimmune.
Okay. I'm gonna go with she's one of the testimonies in my book, but she had Lyme disease. She was young too when she got it. I
Mm,
mean, in her 20s. But really bad case. She ended up testing positive for 3 or 4 different Lyme viruses plus the co-infections of the bacteria. Uh, she hit the ground running. She did integrative care. She used Western medicine as she needed to, especially her thyroid was off, so she needed to function. She couldn't function very well. She did go to an integrative clinic in Mexico a few times as well to learn from Lyme specific doctors into, I think, wrap her brain around the process of what it takes to make. And then when she'd come back here, we would carry on what she was doing. So I was able to do her diet and her herbs the entire time. They didn't touch that. But when she came back here, I was support for her. So it took, geez, I think it took us a year and a half before she even got her first time where the viruses weren't in her blood.
mm,
80% of her symptoms were gone. Her longest symptom was still hanging on even a year later. And this girl was on it, like
mm.
the morning routine, doing her IVs, getting the stuff out of her body. I mean, she was on it. Um, and then the one big thing I learned that isn't just a Lyme disease, that it's an all illness thing that we're starting to connect the dot on is we got her blood health healthy. Like, so when we draw it, oh, you're in normal ranges, and a lot of our symptoms are better. But then there was like this second wave, and learning about it from Lyme is like, once your blood gets healthy enough, the cells, the inner organs will release a little bit more that I've been holding on to.
Hmm.
And you can then have like a relapse or a flare up. And
Mm.
she did. It was 6 months later, she tested positive
Mm.
for a virus again. And then we ironed that out and she's been clean ever since. But there was like this dump out of the organs that came year and a half later.
Interesting.
It is. So the process is like her story, those stories. People need to know that because she would have, if we wouldn't have been there, she would have changed everything she was doing. And I'm like, no, you're still doing it right. We just need that much more time. I mean, it's all of 2 or 3 years for almost any chronic condition
Mm.
doing the right thing, unless you're lucky.
Yeah. And Lyme's disease could be very serious. I've known a few people.
Brutal,
Yeah. And how
brutal.
did she know how she got it?
No, not
Okay.
fully. She was
Yeah.
bit by ticks when she was younger, but it wasn't a recent bite. Uh, it did happen after a pretty emotional, traumatic event. And that seems to be a pattern too. A year or two before these big diagnoses, there's something pretty emotional and traumatic that happens.
Mm.
So that was definitely a trigger. But one of our blood tests that we do in the clinic can tell us how long, if something's been in someone's body since they were a kid versus just last year. So
Okay.
she did have bugs that were dormant from childhood. So our theory is it got reactivated and then she dealt with it then.
Wow. That's it. So how now she's good to go?
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
She's
Yeah.
working full time. The big symptoms are gone, and she's more in maintenance now,
Mm.
which is a good place to be.
And when we've talked about like sort of your morning routine, like what about evening, like to set up a quality sleep? Like are there certain things that you do?
Yes, and so every morning when I'm doing that routine, like I make 10-15 minutes, whether you call it your quiet time, meditation, whatever it is. I do some red light, but I take that time to stop, reflect, and I do the same thing at night. So I'm always going to put my phone down hour before, but every single night I have my little stop reflection time, get the things out of the head that I need to, and try to down regulate my body and nervous system. Sometimes I do a little bit more red light, but no, I take that really serious, the sleep
Yeah.
hygiene.
I know we talk about it a lot. Red light I've been using in the mornings and in the evenings, just like there's something about it. Like I know there's been studies around like helping maybe even with like hair growth and collagen production and things that probably take a while to see results, perhaps, or if but like I just think there's something calming about it, like in the evenings and in the mornings, just like great way to start the day.
Agree with you there.
Yeah.
And I have noticed a difference in my sleep quality if I do it, even for 8-10 minutes at night.
Before you go to bed. Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. Um, yeah, I have a few of them. One's in the basement, and I'm thinking about getting maybe one more just to have around the house.
I love it.
What about like when it comes to sleep, like anything like reishi? Like, are there any maybe some hacks people can use to help natural hacks to help them maybe fall asleep or relax at least?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'm sure you've come across the ashwagandha at night, reishi. So in herbalism, they're adaptogens. So they help the body deal with any form of stress from any source, really. And they help bring us back down to baseline. So if you're under, you'll bring up. If you're over, you'll come down.
Mm.
Those are general. So ashwagandha will work that way of like after a long day, bring you down so you have a chance to fall asleep better. But it's not a sleep time herb, so to speak, like skullcap, passion flower, valerian root, hops flower. Those are like sedative based herbs,
Mm.
meaning you usually can feel like a down regulation to them.
Mm.
They work, especially like skullcap, passion flower. You're gonna feel it, like if I'm making a mocktail or something, you're gonna
Hmm.
feel it calm you down. But the cool part is the nourishing part of them works on your own neurotransmitter production.
Mm.
So a lot of people have issues with that, neurotransmitter deficiencies for whatever reasons. So they're not just going to help you get to sleep, but they're going to work on the root of restoring neurotransmitter function too. Um, with that being said, that's one thing the last couple of years that I've focused a lot on, and it's helped too, is figuring out what neurotransmitters my body is deficient in, and supplementing some of those at night. So like L-theanine, GABA, NAC, I take all of those at night with those type of herbs.
Yeah. And is that just simple blood test to find that out, or is that?
You can. What I did was I did it's called 3x4 genetics. It's
Okay.
a cheek swab one. You can get
Oh.
it just about anywhere, from functional medicine doctors. But that one, I mean, it had your liver methylation, but it had a lot of them.
Mm.
So your main organ systems pathways. Well, that one pointed out that my nervous system runs quite hot, and it has depleted a few of those. So that has been truly helpful,
Mm.
and really noticed a difference.
Okay. Yeah, nowadays there's so much testing. It's like you got to sort of pick your battles with that, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
In your practice, you guys do a lot of testing or send it out?
We give people the option. Um, the league. So I'm the alternative medicine clinic. So the insurance companies don't cover a lot of what we do here.
Right.
HSA, FSA, they'll let you do that, but we give them the option. I go through it two ways because, like, when I had my health issues, I didn't have health insurance, and finances was a real issue at that time.
Sure.
So I also figured out, like, based on your symptoms, what organ systems those are, and how we can then begin to use food to nourish those up. So, like, relating them back to the part of the body that most likely is underperforming and why. So I have a process of going through based off symptoms that can
Hmm.
give us a jump start. And then hopefully, if they do have extra cash or they want testing, they can pick and choose the areas that we really have no clue in. But I have people that do goose egg, no testing, and then some that just go to town. But there's a definite limit. Some people just want to do testing just to do testing.
Right,
And
right.
I'm like, got to get to the treatment at some point.
Yeah, yeah. And this was great. In your book, No Cure, No Problem, when did it come out?
It's coming up on about a month now.
Oh, great. Okay. And that's on Amazon, where most people buy books nowadays. There's not a, I was gonna say there's not many like Barnes and Nobles. Are you in any stores? I remember when I wrote that kid's book, I was in stores and stuff, but now I feel like stores are sort of non-existent when it comes to books. There's not many.
Right. Not really. And I haven't stepped out locally. So online, Barnes and Nobles, online, Amazon, and everywhere. But um, no, from what I understand, they kind of like you got to qualify, and I don't know if I've hit those numbers
Yeah.
to qualify.
Oh, to get into the stores.
Hmm.
Yeah. You could get it. You could go to some, local stores, just mom and pop shops and talk to them and maybe get in there. That might not be a bad thing just for, local marketing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they might have you come, do maybe a reading or talk about your, topic. That might not be a bad way to go. So,
Yeah. There's a couple of those here in town I've thought about.
yeah, no, yeah, I remember doing that a bit. Well, this was great. I'll ask you one last question. I ask most of my guests that come on, if you were going to give one tip to someone who's maybe trying to get their health in order, or their body back in order, what one tip would you get them just to get started?
Figure out your why. Um, you need a home base for making decisions. So it's very easy to get pulled in different directions, or someone tell you an idea or you see it on social media. So it's okay to explore. It's okay to be curious, but you have to build to come back to your why for your health, your biology, so that you can know if you're making the right decision. because the people that have actually went to remission, they all have that nailed down. They all have that filter, and anything new, they funnel through that. But that could be the most important thing before you go find your specifics is know that why.
Love that. Figure out the why, and then everything else should come into place, right? Should fall into place.
Makes it easier for it too.
Yeah. Well, this was great, Jason. Yeah, I will put links in the show notes for people to find you, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and then a little bit of knowledge around herbals and how people can heal from that. So thanks so much for coming on.
Yes, it was great, Brian. Very nice to be here and talk about it, and I enjoyed myself as well.
All right, have a great rest of the day.
All right, you too.
Thanks for listening to the show. I know there's thousands of podcasts out there, and you chose to listen to mine. I will put a link in the show notes if you want to connect with my guest. And if you are looking for one-on-one consulting with me, I will put a free 15-minute link so you can set up a call to see if you're fit for my 6-month health breakthrough program. So thanks again. Feel free to rate and subscribe. I would love that to help support the podcast. And till next time, have a great rest of the day, and I will see you on my next podcast. Thanks so much.